Alrighty then. I'm joined by Marc Cooper, a colleague and friend. I can say I worked at his agency a while back. It seems like a long time now, but it's okay. Mark, thanks for joining me on another Meet Me session, meeting our members. And just to talk about that a little bit, one thing that Liz and I are proud of is just the sheer range of members. Like it's students, it's marketing pros, it's media people, it's recruiters. So, I mean, we've wrangled our networks, but it is an interesting community and things are changing fast. So, thank you for joining me. Why don't you give the audience a little bit of a background and how we met and your connection?
Absolutely. Well, first off, thank you for having me. Absolutely thrilled to be here and part of the eclectic community that you're building. I think it's fantastic. It's a great initiative, and I've loved seeing it grow as quickly as it has. As you said, I'm Marc Cooper. I'm the president of Junction 59. We're an integrated ad agency in Toronto. We actually now have an office in Florida. We can talk more about that later,
Yeah,
because I know that Florida is near and dear to you.
I'm
Uh,
headed there. I'm headed there in a couple weeks for another 10 days. I just hope it isn't hot as hell yet.
Yeah, well, if it's hot like it is here, imagine what it's like there.
Yeah.
Uh, but as I said, Junction 59 is an integrated ad agency, and about a little over 20 years ago, I started here. And it was probably about 15 years ago that you and I first met.
Yeah.
Um, and, as an agency, we've been constantly evolving and growing. We had one of our clients and longstanding clients is TELUS. So we were early adopters of a lot of technology, whether it was for marketing or for business operations. So when AI came along, it was a very easy thing for us to start thinking about adopting. I'm already personally an early adopter, whether it was cell phones in the 80s, for work and actually trying to make money using cell phones and
Sure.
technology, or Blackberries or iPhones or whatever the case may be. So really easy step for me to get involved. And I think my connection to the community specifically, goes back to the CMA and the curriculum that you developed. I was invited, I think, by you, maybe arm twisted is the better word to
Ah,
use, into being an advisor for the summit course,
yep.
for the CM program. And so, right from the get-go there, I was involved in seeing the students go through the program and learning, and could see how curriculum could evolve and develop now that AI has come along, and it's got some really great opportunities to advance how we learn, how we use technology, and how we market. So that's me.
And that's great. And you have not-for-profits, but you have some big clients, you have some smaller clients. It's an interesting agency. Uh, Take me back. The history of the agency wasn't it? What was it called? Smith McIntyre Vick, right? Wasn't?
Well, originally it was actually Camp and Associates, because it was founded by Dalton Camp in 1959,
Oh,
which
okay,
is where the
right,
59 in the agency comes from.
right,
Um, in the 80s, Dalton split off a group to focus on not-for-profits. And that group is actually the origin story of Junction 59. But over the years, Camp Associates became Smith McIntyre Vict.
right,
Smith McIntyre Vict became Agency 59.
right, okay,
And our little breakout group became Agency 59 Response. And
right,
that's just simply because as partners came and went, we had to keep changing the name. And we got to a point where we didn't want to be like a law firm with revolving names on the door.
right.
So we came up with Agency 59 instead of people's names, which was for me disappointing, because alphabetically speaking, it would have been Cooper, everyone else. Uh, and I lost out on that when we switched over.
Yeah, so we're joined by someone from the community. Welcome.
Hi. Sorry, guys. Took me a few minutes to figure out how to join.
That's okay. So Mark was just telling us about his agency and the experience. So yeah, that's right. You started as direct response, so that and then that grew that side of the agency, correct?
Yeah, we found really quickly as technology was starting to be used more and more in the marketing that we did, and the digital age was evolving, that direct response marketing and digital marketing were very, very
Sure.
closely related. Strong calls to action, always asking whether it was for a click on a banner, a click through in an email,
Yeah.
or someone to pick up the phone after reading a direct mail piece. It seemed natural.
I
And
know, and you know
today,
what? You know what? It's so funny now. It seems so natural, but at the time, it wasn't so natural,
right,
right?
right.
You're just getting data. I remember when I was at Saatchi, I was working on I was on the Toyota business, and I jumped up and down to get lease data from because the target was that kind of demographic. Like it made perfect sense. And
Yeah.
I asked them, and they were like, "Oh, what?" Like it was, it just seemed a natural kind of extension of business anything. And here we are now in 2024 when everything is on the verge
And
of a
that's
huge
right.
transformation,
Today,
right?
we're using that kind of data to figure out where we should place our billboards. We're
Sure.
using digital IDs to track where people go from one dealership to the next and send them, text messages or serve them banner ads on the weather network, you name it. All that data has turned into day-to-day operational components of advertising and marketing.
Sure. And we had a fascinating roundtable yesterday where we were talking about well, you can see it in the recording, but we talked about what is going to happen with SEO and what is going to happen with web traffic, with AI and search engines changing. So anyway, we're in for an amazing change. You know me, I'm kind of a hopeless optimist, maybe a little naive about things, but I think it's important that we remain optimistic about this. Well,
100%.
well, thanks for joining us. So the first question really is, and I mean, it's a two-parter, but how are you using AI in your personal life? And then you started to talk about it, but how is it actually impacting your current business and your current clients?
Sure, sure. So, I mean, in my personal life, because personal and business blend so nicely together these days, I mean, I use it to start just about every conversation, right? So, and I don't mean conversation with people, but every time I need to do something, whether it's lease a new car, write a new brief, research a potential company, or a vacation or travel plans. I actually start with AI now. I used to start by making a lot of notes, right? I was a note maker.
Right.
I actually have dozens of those notebooks in my file drawer because I would make lists and I would make notes, and then I'd reorganize those lists and notes, and I'd go back to them and I'd rewrite things. And finally, days later, I'd land on the starting point for that vacation or for that brief or for whatever it was I was working on. I do that now with ChatGPT in probably 5 minutes. I spit out my thoughts. I ask for help organizing them
Yeah.
into a logical flow. And then I use that to go and have a conversation with my wife about where we're going next.
Well, and also I think that it's great to hear that, and I think that's what's happening over and over because, it's the folks that are, oh, I don't know how to use it, or I stand back, that don't cross that threshold to become users. And then, of course, because it is interacting with human language, the better, I mean, I've been saying this line, I'll say it again, but we're living through the revenge of the liberal arts majors, I think. And what I mean by that is, we're not this is not code. You're interacting with something that has been trained on human language and the written word. So the more skilled you are at conversation, or the more nuanced you are with your vocabulary, that's what you get in return in many ways. So I do the same, and not to my wife necessarily, but if I'm researching a project or something, it almost always gives you those two or three things that you may have left out of the initial pass, right? I mean, I think that's the gut reaction that many people have. Good. Okay, so now go to your client side. Are you seeing a huge range, or is it actually kind of implementation now?
Well, so, I guess it happens at two fronts, right? We have some clients who are embracing it and using it themselves. They've
Okay.
built their own models.
Yep.
They've taken all their data from decades ago and dumped it into their chat GPTs, their personal ones, and they're using it internally to help train, to help upskill their workers on the history of what they've done and how they've done it. And that's fantastic. We're seeing some of them use it even in the creative output that they're doing. So they're using it for long form content creation.
Yeah.
I'm lucky being an agency that they're not really fully embracing it on all of the creative paths yet for,
Right.
the smaller tasks. They're still relying on the human to come up with that headline that's going to really draw people in. Um, but they are embracing it for some of those other pieces. And it's amazing because they're getting more content a little faster than they would, especially well trained on their own original thinking.
Right.
So it's really just a manipulation of that thinking. And then we have other clients that aren't really using it themselves, but they're letting us use it for them. So we are, at the proof of concept stage. Instead of having an art director spend 3 days sketching out an illustration of what something might look like if we get the chance to move that piece forward, we're turning to Midjourney and other tools
Yep.
to come up with some creative, fully disclosing when we presented that it was generated through
Yep.
AI and that we may or may not be able to use it depending on their governance and what they're comfortable with. But
Sure.
it's a thought starter, and it gets us to that conversation that much faster. Uh,
Right.
and it lets our team spend more time focusing on the idea and less time focusing on how to actually spit out that idea. So we're not shaving time off the overall project. We're just focusing more of our time on the things that we're better skilled at. And so what our hope is, and this will be proven over time, but our hope is that the output is better,
Yeah.
not necessarily quicker.
Yeah. I mean, you're looking for the win-win on both sides,
Yeah.
right? In an ideal world. And I think that's a very healthy way to approach it. And also, the couple of things come to mind. The tools are at their worst right now, right? Like, if you think about it, so like that's a really encouraging kind of thing to keep in mind sometimes because it's only going to get better. But also they're evolving and changing and growing so dramatically. So I don't know whether you know of it, but I sat in on a 2-day webinar. The links for the files are in the feed yesterday. It was called The Infinite Canvas by Super Side. I think Super something was the host. There's so many people, there's so many organizations in the AI space now, but it was a 2-day conference and all virtual, but it was all creative, Mark. Like it was, and very interesting from the briefing side to the prototyping and sketching, and just like you said, using it for iterations. But there was a creative director from a new platform I had never heard of called Leonardo.ai,
Yes.
and they're in Australia. And it was 3 o'clock in the morning when she was doing this webinar, but I had never seen the platform, and it was mind blowing what she would generate. It was all web based too. It was very very interesting. I've now gone on their Discord server, but I'm going to play around with it. But I'm sure creative directors would appreciate it. All
Yeah.
right.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, no, no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's really exciting how quickly it is advancing.
Yeah.
You're right. The tools are at their worst right now. I think the first time we spit out some creative, we got people with six fingers.
Yeah.
We got, and when you'd ask for a small modification, the modification would be completely different. Uh,
And
but
the spelling for
yeah,
Midjourney is terrible with spelling and text, really, which
yeah.
is
But even in this short time, they are getting better, and we're getting better at using them. So we're giving better prompts so we're getting better output. And I think as the tools get better and the users get better, that's where we're going to find the sweet spot.
yeah. And I have a question about this, but the role of an agency still in many ways is, and I mean, I'm a big, I'm an agency guy, but at the same time, that trust with a client, with the long-term business strategy and the history of the brand and the brand equity and all those things that are talked about in the agency side are not going to go away. They're only going to be improved by these tools, right? In the best of possible worlds.
That's what we hope.
Well, and also to be fair, I don't think we can really expect our government or our organizations to rise to the occasion in terms of getting the right governance. We kind of have to do it ourselves, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
they'll catch up, but we have to start.
yes, yes. And that's another reason why Liz and I started the organization, started the community, just to have those conversations because the existing professional associations aren't, you know what I mean? They're doing their own thing and they're set up the way they're set up. So, all right, let's go to the scary stuff. Give me the worst case scenario. What scares you in terms of AI and the tools?
I mean, I think um, the scariest thing is actually the use and how people use AI, not so much the tool itself.
Right.
Um, right. I'm more scared about people. If you think about what we've been through in the last 5 to 8 years in various political situations, both in Canada and the US, and I'm sure in Europe as well, where we've seen misinformation and disinformation
Yeah.
easily shared on the internet. Um, you know, that was done without AI for the most part. Now, how easy it's going to be to
Yeah.
do that, and not just in politics, but we spend our days on Google and searching for research and data and information to help make our projects better, whether you're in advertising or not.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and if that information is disinformation, but now made to look a lot more authentic and a lot more real, uh, what does that do to even people not using AI, just using the information that they got
Yeah.
off the internet? So I'm worried a little bit about that because I feel like we're in a bit of a race to the bottom, and this can actually help speed that race up. Uh,
Yeah. That's a completely valid and scary concern. And it really does. This has come up time and time again in our conversations. Uh, yes, the tools are amazing. Yes, the breakthroughs are amazing, but it is a hope for humanity if we can kind of realize that this makes our human to human interactions even more important and valuable. And to your point, we have to be able to trust what we know is real. And however that mechanism becomes, like we had a conversation yesterday, and it was about there's a couple platforms now that just generate full-on pop songs from a text prompt. A couple of them were shockingly good, or maybe I shouldn't say good. They were more like incredibly nuanced and like fully realized, full on pop songs. And I posted one in the feed because I was shocked by it. But one of the musicians and Kevin, our other host, who's a musician, was like, "Well, this is only going to make in-person music events even more, valuable. Like, sitting, listening to a band or a banjo player, anyone playing a guitar, just, the human to human interaction side. I know, it's going to be a very interesting couple of years, and the politics are scary with the timing of this too. I totally understand and agree with you. And, I mean, I'm, me, I'm a US citizen as well, so it's concerning when I go down to Florida. Yes. All right. Let's move on to positive things. What are you looking for positively in terms of AI on the other side, both professionally and personally?
Yeah, well, I think I'm looking forward to the improved experience that
Yeah.
we can all get from AI, right? You think about when maybe or even a recent advancement with Google when we got into voice technology and people, and I got to be careful because Google over here on the right probably will answer me in a minute.
Yes. Yes.
Uh,
My election's right there,
yeah,
actually.
but when we first started, we were all amazed by it. See, there you go. It
Yeah,
didn't take us very long, though, for us to become disappointed with the fact that we couldn't ask succession of questions to build on the conversation we were having with Google. You know, you went from, what's the weather? And then you wanted to know whether you
yeah,
should wear a raincoat or carry an umbrella. And it couldn't make the connection between the answer it just gave you and the answer it was about to give you.
right,
That is going to leapfrog forward when AI is fully integrated into that technology. And AI on it itself, whether you're doing it through ChatGPT, I often use ChatGPT on my cell phone. Well, I just dated myself because I called it a cell phone, but
yes,
I often use it when I'm on the drive into the office. I click the button, I leave it on the seat beside me, and I can dictate to it or ask it questions and plan my day. And it's constantly listening and updating and having that longer conversation with me. So I'm really looking forward to that starting to permeate different parts of my life. Whether that's in a work situation where, well, we're a small agency. I can't afford a personal assistant. Uh,
right,
that's a very extravagant kind of thing for a small agency to have. But I now have someone who can summarize the emails, tell me
sure.
the promises I made yesterday and what I should be doing today to follow up on those things, and then help get me started with summarizing documents that I need to read, and being prepared for that next meeting. So I'm looking forward to those kinds of things just being second nature, not just to me, but to the rest of the people that I work with, because I think it's going to take so much of the menial task and
Yeah.
not to demean people who are personal assistants. There's a tremendous, as I say, I wish I had one, but it is going to take some of those kinds of tasks away, and free people up to do the things that they'd rather do. Uh,
Well, and also and the conversations and the time spent on the actual work itself. I don't know if you use Otter.ai, but it's really well, it's just a,
I've played with Otter a little bit. We do have Zoom across the
yeah,
organization, and there are some AI features within
yep,
Zoom. So it takes meeting notes for us. It summarizes the notes. If you start a meeting late and you have the Zoom assistant on, you can actually ask it to catch you up on what you missed.
wow,
So there are some really amazing features built into the tools we're using today. We also have the Copilot from our Microsoft suite. So, we're constantly using it to help us kickstart some of the work we have to do. And it's really quite amazing.
and so at the agency, did it happen kind of organically? Did you have any internal meetings or discussions about this, or did people start picking them up just organically on their own for their own work?
I'd say it's a little bit of both. That's
Yeah.
right, which is, I think, natural in most organizations. You have a few early adopters
Yep.
that start playing around with things. I was one of them, of course, but our strategist, Levanipok, was right in there looking up things, and we would start having conversations. And then one of our creative team members started to play around and came up with some draft ideas. And that's when we realized we needed to have a broader conversation
Yeah.
because more and more people were experimenting, and we wanted to set some rules and guidelines around how we use it, what we use it for, what we disclose to clients,
Yeah.
and so on, or when it's important to disclose things. And so I think maybe within, relatively within a few months of and we know AI has been around for a long time, but a few
Right.
months of it being popularized, we sat down and we had a town hall and we talked about it. And now it's almost on every agenda
Yeah.
for our monthly town halls to talk about the latest tool, what's changed, what you're using. But I would also say that only about 50% of the agency are actually using it a lot. Uh,
Yeah.
and the rest of them are still in the experiment stage and not in the full use stage.
Well, and also the timing is interesting, right? We're really so when ChatGPT 3.5 was like, I got access, I think November or October of So I was immediately wired. I was like, oh no, no, this is going to change everything. But I was also coming at it from an educational and LMS, like a teaching platform, teaching perspective. And here we are, like in the course of like, it's gone from crickets to we're not using that, or we're going to detect students. You know what I mean? And there's still a huge wave of change coming in the educational space, especially in well, all grades, but it's within a year it's exploded. And I'm sitting on a lot of webinars. I'm watching that space change quickly, but the initial reluctance and hesitation because we've always taught this way is still being overcome in many ways.
Yeah, I think I have two teenagers, so one in middle school and one in high school, and we have to struggle with how they use AI.
Right,
They get lectures at school around what's acceptable and what isn't, and
right,
then we have to talk about it at home too, because it's a really interesting space. But you don't have to go back too far when you could Google something and plagiarize it from Google and
yeah,
cut and paste three different paragraphs.
yeah,
When I was in high school, you'd go to the reference library and you'd pull out three different encyclopedias and borrow a paragraph from each of the three. And that was still plagiarism. It was just a manual process. All we've done
right,
is sped up the process. It was wrong if you did it out of the three encyclopedias, and it's wrong if you get ChatGPT to write your essay for you. But at the end of the day, that's just the technology making that easier to do. It's
right.
not making it any more or less right.
No, and the assessments to figure out who is learning what have to be reimagined that way. How did you get here, kind of thing?
Right.
How did you arrive at this, rather than the mechanism necessarily itself? Leslie Hughes was telling about she has a 16-year-old, and we were talking yesterday at the round table, and one of his friends just sat through a proctored exam with ChatGPT between his legs and the phone and listening to the entire proctored exam, and he was interacting with it and cheating. So, I mean, the kids are going to be out there doing that ahead.
Yeah.
Well, well, listen, we're closing in on a half an hour, and now the final and most important question in many ways. Marc Cooper, what is the best sandwich?
Mhm. You know what? You'd be surprised how often I get asked this question, so I'm totally prepared to answer it. I, I'm going to have to go back for those of you who might be watching this that are in Toronto. There on Yonge Street, just before Hogs Hollow, there was a submarine shop, Belly Busters. And the Belly Busters sub, whether you dressed it up or got the simple basic one, hands down, best Subway sandwich ever. Belly Busters. So
So kind of like cold, like a traditional sub, cold cut,
yeah,
this tomato,
a
that sort of.
close second would be a cold cut trio from Mr. Sub. Um, and Mr. Sub used to be much bigger than it is now. I think they were 400 or 500 locations. Now they're only a couple hundred. They're getting pushed out by Subway, the ubiquitous sandwich shop. But yeah, it's just a nice cold cut sandwich.
Well, and to be honest with you, when they're really good, they're really good.
They're refreshing, they're filling.
Yeah.
I'd like to think they're good for you, but with that much bread, probably not
Yeah.
so much.
Well, also I think someone might argue with the cold cuts, the preservatives and things too.
Yeah,
But I grew up in New Jersey, so they would be called hoagies there,
right.
but very much the same thing. And old school Italian delis would be where you get them. No, we asked this of everyone of our questions, and we've had fascinating responses. Emily Bailey, bless her heart, she's an instructor, an award-winning instructor, and she was like, a pulled pork sandwich with coleslaw. She without any hesitation whatsoever. All
Nice.
righty then. Now we know how. Thank you so much for sitting in with us, and also we are going to do some. I want to do some roundtables with agency folks doing strategy and brief work and that sort of iteration from different areas and in the future. We're putting together the lab area, so We're going to continue to build the community, and thank you so much for sitting in. Everyone have a lovely afternoon. If you're here in Toronto, the weather's beautiful.
Great. Thanks so much for having me, Stephen.
Thank you very much, Mark. We'll talk soon. Bye,
Indeed. Bye,
everyone.
everyone.